What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron. It's a Tuesday, which means it's time to talk through our must-add waiver wire targets for Week 12 of the fantasy football season. We're going to go through 10 players today. They are all under 50% owned in ESPN leagues. I believe we have, Week 12, 13, 14. So 3 weeks left of the regular season. Then it's playoff time, which means we have to get things right. Some of these are going to be stashes. Some of these are going to be instant plug-in plays in case if you need somebody in a matchup this week. This is crunch time. Everything you do from this point forward is crucial to making the playoffs, winning your league. So lock in. As always, if you enjoy my shit down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go. All right, now our first must-add player here is Zach Charbonnet. He is the man of the hour when it comes to these waiver wire videos. What happened was we had a Kenneth Walker injury. It was an oblique injury, so that's not super brutal. But the Seahawks play on Thursday. I don't know who they play, actually. I don't think it's going to be. I know the Lions always play. I know the Cowboys always play. But for some reason, I don't think it's either of those teams that he's playing on Thursday night. Regardless, Kenneth Walker is not going to be able to recover from an oblique injury that quickly. So that means you're getting Zach Charbonnet as a 1-week rental here. We're going to get Charbonnet in a full-time workload on Thursday, and they're playing San Francisco on Thursday. Is that true? I'm saying no way the Seahawks and the 49ers are playing. They are. Okay, it's a night game. That's actually a great game. I mean, I think people have been fed up with the primetime games, but 49ers Seahawks, 8:20 p.m. on Thanksgiving, I mean, I'm down with that. So, tough matchup versus the 49ers, but Charbonnet got so much volume here. He had a 90% snap share to DJ Dallas's 11% snap share after the Kenneth Walker injury, as you can see from Dave Richards' tweet here. Charbonnet didn't really go crazy in terms of his output. He only gave you 12.9 PPR points, but the volume was there. 21 touches. He had 15 carries, 6 catches, which is huge. 6 targets, 6 catches. The receiving volume should be there versus the 49ers. My only cause of concern is maybe Kenny McIntosh gets, is in the mix for this game. I know that he's been on and off the injury report, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. Yeah, Kenny McIntosh is going to make his season debut. So maybe you want to stash Kenny McIntosh, but I feel like that's only in the deepest of deep leagues. Regardless, again, Charbonnet is going to get all the volume in this game. Probably flirt with 15 plus touches, maybe 20 touches in this game. If he's on waivers, he shouldn't be. Zach Charbonnet, I think that he's only owned 30% of ESPN leagues at this point. So if he's out there and you need a running back this week, I'm trying to think of somebody. If you have Kenneth Walker or you have somebody, no one's on bye, but if you have somebody who's hurt or you just really need to win this week, I'd advise going as all out as you possibly can on Zach Charbonnet. Now, moving on from Charbonnet, we have Keaton Mitchell, who we've talked about a bunch, but he's still only owned in 30% of ESPN leagues. So I just want to talk about him again. Shout out to the utilization report over on My Fantasy Life. You can see here his snap share has increased every week. He went from 17% to 22% to 37% versus the Bengals, which is absolutely massive. Now, he had 20 PPR points, then 14, then 5. So that's not great. It's not someone you can really start with any confidence right now, but it's trending up. If he can get to 50% of the touches or 50% of the snaps, we're cooking with something there. He's very efficient. He's this small, fast speedster guy. And without Mark Andrews, there's going to be opportunity for playmakers to step up. I think Keaton Mitchell could find himself in a crucial part of this offense with a guy like Mark Andrews hurt. So Keaton Mitchell, surely somebody to stash and somebody that you can honestly, there's worse options than playing Keaton Mitchell in the RB2 spot and just hoping for a blow-up game. Our third running back we're going to talk about today is Ty Chandler. We talked about him last week, but we might as well talk about him again. We thought maybe Alexander Mattison would be out with a concussion. He was not, but even still, Kevin O'Connell's making an effort to include Ty Chandler in this game plan. He had 23 of 48 snaps. This is a tweet from Adam Levitan. He had 7 routes to Madison's 20, and he had 14 opportunities to Madison's 20 opportunities. So that's a lot of running. I don't know why I said running, but I was going to say it's a lot of touches to the running back position regardless, but 14 touches or 14 opportunities will do. I mean, he's really a glorified handcuff at this point, Ty Chandler, but he has upside to maybe take over Alexander Madison's role. He has upside to make it a 50-50 split. Like, it wouldn't shock me if this was sort of like a Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard situation where eventually Chandler just kind of took over. And if not, you still have a really valuable handcuff on your roster. So he shouldn't be available on waivers anywhere. He had 10 for 73, and then he had 4 catches for 37 yards. So he's getting it through the air. He's explosive on the ground. Ty Chandler needs to be rostered everywhere. After that, we have another Raven. We're going to have a lot of Ravens on here just because there's going to be such a huge void in this Ravens offense without Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely fills that void. Mark Andrews hurt. They said immediately like out for the year, but they said maybe he'll come back at the end. But it seems like you're not going to have to worry about Mark Andrews returning until maybe the championship round. But if you've been someone that's been struggling with tight end all season long, Isaiah Likely is a good pickup. I wouldn't go crazy. Like, he's not a top 5 tight end rest of season. I don't think he's even like a Trey McBride type of guy where he's like a must start every week, but he's pretty good. He has 3 career games without Mark Andrews, 9.7 points per game in those 3 games. And that's right about on par with where David Njoku and Logan Thomas are this year. Like, just shy of 10 PPR points per game as like a fringe tight end one. And that's fine, right? That's somebody you can start on a every week basis. But again, I wouldn't get too over your skis. He's a 4.8 speed guy, so he's tough. I know that he had some explosion, but he's not very fast or big, which usually I prefer my tight ends to look like that. I think Trey McBride's a guy who runs a 4.6. Now, after Isaiah Likely, now again, if you're struggling at tight end, like don't be afraid. I mean, if you want to go like 15 to 20%, you definitely can. Now, moving on from that, we have our rookie wide receivers. Which shout out to the rookie wide receiver report we do on the top 10 lessons learned videos. But week 9, or pretty much what this chart or this table is, it just shows the rookie wide receivers and how they're doing. You have the previous 3 weeks route percentage, so you know just how many of the routes or how many of the passing plays are they running a route on. Target per run, just per route basis, how often are you commanding a target. Yards per run, how efficient are you on those routes. PFF grade, how do you look on film. And then percent change is just your overall PFF grade. How much did you impact it last week, right? So Tank Dell increased his PFF grade by 8% this week, most across all of the rookies in this sample. Now, there's no new news with Josh Downs. He's just somebody who's not owned in all ESPN leagues. So I just want to say again, if you're somewhere on waivers, you have to get Josh Downs. There's nothing to really update about because before the bye, he had 43% of the routes, then 18%. But before that, he was a full-time wide receiver. He was looking amazing. 20% plus target per run is what we're looking for. He was efficient, 1.86 yards per out run, 75 plus PFF grade. Josh Downs is a stud. He's somebody that could be a league winner down the stretch. Same thing with Demario Douglas. He was also on bye. There's not really much to take away from this. But he had a pretty good game. He had a serviceable game is what I'll call it. Overseas, 14.4 PPR points, 9 targets, 6 catches, 84 yards. In a game where the Patriots were awful. Demario Douglas is a legit guy here. 80% plus of the routes 2 weeks before the bye week. 24% target per out run is right in line with your guys like Tank Dell. 1.98 yards per out run in an offense this bad is also great. And then a 77 PFF grade, also great. So Demario Douglas is like a wide receiver 3 flex play rest of the year, which is nice, especially in PPR leagues. Now, another rookie wide receiver I want to talk through is Jayden Reed. Now, I do want to preface this by saying that I like to include rookie wide receivers on here because I mean, we had Tank Dell on these early on in the year. The whole point is that rookie wide receivers have some of the best upside in the NFL. Sometimes things can just click for them, and down the stretch, they can be awesome. We've seen it with Christian Watson. We're seeing it with Tank Dell right now. Before that, we've seen it with Amon-Ra St. Brown in the past. We've seen it with Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, A.J. Brown. The list goes on and on. We're trying to find the next of those guys. I like Jayden Reed, man. I didn't like him a lot as a prospect. I know a lot of Dynasty guys will say that. But he's growing on me, man. He continues to impress. You can see he's sandwiched between Jordan Addison and Dontavion Wicks. Jayden Reed had like 70% plus of the routes he was running while Christian Watson was out. Christian Watson comes back. He gets relegated down to, you see, 45% in week 9, 56% in week 10, then up to 79%. They keep on flirting with the idea of using Jayden Reed as a full-time, like 80% plus route share receiver. And if he hits that, he's someone you can start every single week. The last 2 weeks, he's had 19 or more PPR points. He had like 3 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown. They want to use him in all phases with no Aaron Jones. I think that they want to use him even more so. So to me, Jayden Reed is one of these rookie wide receivers that I think is probably more likely to be on waivers than your guys like Josh Downs and Demario Douglas, who absolutely needs to be rostered. Now, in terms of just home run swings here, Jameson Williams is that. Now, the floor is the floor is somebody you could cut literally next week. He makes bad drops. He's not a special player, or hasn't shown to be a special player just yet for fantasy purposes. Is what I'm trying to say. I'm a Jameson Williams fan. You just have to understand what you're signing up for. Okay, you are signing up for somebody you cut next week or somebody that could win you the fantasy playoffs with 30 points in week 15. There's really no in between here. But the route percentage is increasing. We can see here on the fantasy life utilization report, 34% of the routes, 55%, 66%. If we could get to 80% plus, we're talking about someone you can start on a weekly basis who is like kind of like a Will Fuller type of guy where he catches passes downfield, makes huge plays. He's somebody in the fantasy playoffs that can give you 3 for 90 and a touchdown and win you that week, or like 4 for 120 and 2. He's that kind of big play wide receiver, just hasn't clicked yet. He is, again, just a massive upside swing you stash on your bench for now. Now, somebody that is more of like a high floor option is going to be Khalil Shakir. Khalil Shakir, he's kind of capped out at like 75% of the routes, but ever since Dawson Knox's injury, I think that's going to be since Dawson Knox's injury, I think it's been like 5 weeks now that Khalil Shakir has been like a full-time wide receiver. 1, 2, 3. No, it's been 4 weeks. So over the last 4 weeks, Khalil Shakir is actually the wide receiver 23. Now, that's not points per game. He's probably more of a wide receiver 3, but he's been startable. He has a 15-point game and a 20-point game this past week where he caught a pass pretty much, I wouldn't call it snatched out of Sauce Gardner's hand. It was really Josh Allen threw the ball so damn hard that it just, found its way into Khalil Shakir's hand, and he just ran after the catch, got all the way to the end zone, scored like an 80-yard touchdown. Khalil Shakir, very interesting. And then the last two guys I want to talk about here are Rashod Bateman and Odell Beckham, the Ravens wide receivers. We have, again, the opening with Mark Andrews gone. Why not bet on one of these two wide receivers to step up here? Odell Beckham first, you can see the sleeper game logs. Over his last 3 games, he's been the wide receiver 12. He had 100 yards last week. He had a touchdown in each of the games before that. I don't watch film, but on tape and on the field, he doesn't look like prime OBJ, but he doesn't look as washed as maybe I once thought, all right? He's doing some things that are exciting, Odell Beckham Jr., where on tape, on the field, he's still savvy. I mean, this was a guy, people forget, dude, like, he was Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Odell Beckham. And I remember a take was he had a game that could translate into his old age, like Antonio Brown, where he wins more on like finesse, route running. Now, of course, he was this explosive athlete that takes slants to the house and everything, but he's also a nuanced wide receiver. So we'll see if that's starting to translate here now. I'm excited about it. Odell Beckham, someone that can't be on waivers at this point. With Mark Andrews gone, he got banged up in this Thursday night game, but it seems like he's going to be just fine. He gets, the extra long week to prepare, and he gets a Chargers defense allowing the second most fantasy points to wide receivers. Now, someone else that's getting the Chargers defense is going to be Rashod Bateman. Now, Rashod Bateman doesn't have the same production. My goodness. He doesn't have the same production. Somebody out there said thank you. I know he doesn't have the same production, Rashod Bateman, but he's running more routes here, 63%, 61%, 77%, 76%. He's been over 75% of the routes the last 2 weeks. Both times being his only spots where he's been over 75% of the routes. He's sort of ramping up here. People who watch football are saying that he looks faster on tape. He's somebody I love coming out of school. To me, don't call me crazy for this, but Rashod Bateman was as good, if not better, than JSN as a prospect. Like, to me, if Rashod Bateman came out in this draft class, he probably would have been my wide receiver 1. Rashod Bateman was that good coming out of school. Maybe wide receiver 2. JSN was very good in terms of his Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, what do you want to call that, context, but still, Rashod Bateman was a monster at Minnesota with no quarterback throwing to him. He had an NFL wide receiver in Tyler Johnson next to him, and he was just an absolute monster, decent athlete. Rashod Bateman's a guy who I struggle to give up on. It wouldn't shock me at all with no Mark Andrews if Rashod Bateman was usable down the stretch here and like legitimately won leagues. I wouldn't go all out on Rashod Bateman. He's someone I would probably just add for free and stash him if you're sort of struggling at your wide receiver flex spots. But Rashod Bateman, to me, a really fun pickup in lieu, I guess you would say, of that Mark Andrews injury. Now, that is going to do it for us today. As always, thank you to Underdog Fantasy. You can see them in the back here. Make sure you check it out. They're doing a really cool Thanksgiving special here where all you have to do is go on Underdog Fantasy, go to the Pick'em lobby, submit any Pick'em slip where you can go higher or lower on passing yards, passing touchdowns. For like Thanksgiving games, you can go. There's NBA and college games. I love Feast Week and college basketball. If you want to go higher or lower on like Zach Edey rebounds or points, that's all there. It's an amazing, amazing selection. So if you check it out, you make any pick'em slip between now and I believe Thanksgiving, you are going to be eligible for this $300,000 airdrop they're doing, where they're going to have 3 different rounds of $100,000 where they just randomly drop money in people's accounts who submitted a pick'em slip from now through Thanksgiving. So make sure you want to check that out. And if you haven't already signed up for Underdog Fantasy, make sure you do so by using promo code RON, and they'll match your first deposit up to $100. You get a link to that in the description in the comment section down below. But if you're already on Underdog, you're already supporting, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like